All right, well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Igor Starkov. I'm the co-founder and CEO of EcoDomus. I assume everybody speaks English here, and if not, I can clarify some concepts in Russian if you want, but I assume we will continue in English. All right. So today's webinar is about digital twins and life cycle, BIM, and common data environments and everything related to that. So I believe we are recording this as well, and but probably, I'm not sure. But let's proceed. All right, you have the chat window, so please use the chat window to ask your questions. We will answer them after I finish my presentation. And in the meantime, I will be also admitting other people who are still joining. All right, so first about EcoDomus. EcoDomus is the California company. I'm one of the two co-founders, and we have been around for about 11 years. We were the first company that started using BIM for something besides the clash detection, that everybody used it for the first 10, 15 years. So it happened, I was graduating from my previous company, Latista, which is now part of Oracle, which was the first company to do the tablet PC-based construction management. That was 2008, 2009. COBI was just introduced. COBI, for those who don't know, stands for Construction Operations Building Information Exchange. And I decided to build a software for COBI. And then my co-founder, Mitch Borislavsky, who is based now in Warsaw, in Poland, he said, why don't we, Igor, start offering these solutions to the owners, the COBI for the owners. So we said, it's a great idea. And so we started doing the intelligent model for the first client. It was University of Southern California. So the building you see in front of you, it's a School of Cinematic Arts funded by Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and they wanted the university to use 3D BIM. So the university asked for BIM from their contractors. That was 2006, 2008. They got the beautiful Navisworks model, but it was useless because nothing about this model was intelligent in terms of the data. And so we started helping them by collecting the information for this model in our application, right? And so that's how EcoDomus was born. Since then, we've been working with the world's greatest facility owners, clients, and their builders, architects, engineers, facility management consultants, and IoT consultants. So, for example, EcoDomus is the BIM common data environment for the US government, for the GSA. GSA stands for General Services Administration. So about 9,000 buildings for the GSA are being stored in EcoDomus CDE. I'll show you today a few other nice examples like Sydney Opera House and maybe Google and some others. So the idea was to build this software that would process the data associated with BIM elements and allow people to access the software, to access the BIM models through the web interface and kind of democratize BIM a little bit. So that's what EcoDomus is. So now let's move towards the definition of what digital twins are and why is it critical? There's a lot of right now conversations going on about digital twins. A lot of people, some people just laser scan the facility and say, hey, we just built a digital twin of that facility. Our definition is slightly more complex. We propose, well, first of all, from the technical point of view, digital twin is a combination of all available technologies related to a facility. So it's BIM plus sensors plus CMMS, CAFM plus ERP plus GIS plus DCIM plus whatever, right? Because if you miss out on at least one of the technologies, they may say, well, why not? Why are not we also a digital twin, right? So, but in the simplest workflow approach, it's how the building is supposed to work digitally, right? That's what we get from the authoring applications, from the simulations, and how it actually works, which is what we get through the sensors, right? Various streaming data, various operational data, schedules, etc. So combining the two is actually going to give you the understanding of where you have these discrepancies. Let's say your simulation says the appropriate temperature for this room at 3 p.m. on Tuesday is 22 degrees Celsius when the VAV box sends air at 200 cubic feet per minute. So that's the simulation, right? And then the sensors actually says, no, your temperature is 19 degrees. So, and that's why you started investigating, figuring out why it's supposed to be 22, but it's 19, because your damper is not closing at 70% as it's supposed to close, but it's closing at only 50% because it's getting rusty, right? And so you just solved an issue, and you obviously fix that damper, it's closing properly, and now you are in line with the most optimal way. In the future, of course, those tasks will be solved automatically. Right now, I wouldn't say that any client is ready to fully embrace this. We still have to solve some of the very basic issues, such as just to create a proper asset register is a quite difficult task. Every time somebody starts talking to us about new technology, they say, are you guys doing something with AI, ML? Can you support augmented reality? And I said, guys, do you even know how many pumps you have? Like, are you 100% sure that's the right number? And it turns out that none of the owners that we work with have the 100% reliability of what they even, what they own. I'm not even talking about optimizing that. So we suggest to build a baseline first, like making sure that you name your objects correctly, that you know what objects affect other objects, that you maintain them properly, that you know how they're supposed to work well. Then you can start optimizing them, creating all of these augmented realities, etc. In terms of building digital twin, now we are big fans of open standards. So we use ISO 19650 like everybody else now, right? Because it's the global national standard. So I would recommend for you as well, if you haven't heard about ISO 19650, have a look. It's not easy to download it because the ISO organization is selling those for, I think, $150 or something like that. But it's well, I don't know, try to find it somewhere. What ISO is based on, it's based on the British standards, on British 1192 standards of how to deal with BIM. And it's a good read, but it's not detailed enough. So if you think that, oh, I will just download this ISO standard and I immediately will understand how to use it, I doubt it's going to be that helpful. First of all, is the ISO guys themselves, those who developed it, they don't have much in terms of the field experience. So they try to be cautious, right? Not to make it too difficult. So it's a good original guidelines, but obviously when you start implementing them in real life, you will realize that there's a lot of information that is not clear, that is a bit ambiguous. Like, for example, it includes the COBie language in 19650, but it doesn't really specify what that means. They just talk about the files instead of discussing how those data points within the files should be managed. They just say, well, you need to submit the COBie file at this time within the project, and it should be a good file. But what exactly is supposed to be there, what can you ignore, that's not part of the ISO standard. Some of the good concepts that we need to pay attention to is the project information model and asset information model. So PIM and AIM, or AIM or PIM, right? So those are the project information model is construction, design, construction, commissioning. Then it becomes the operational model that is used during the facilities management and renovation. These are concepts, at least, that you need to be familiar with. Our solution, why I put it in the middle here, it's a life cycle common data environment. So one of the You've definitely heard of many other CDEs like BIM 360 Docs, ProjectWise from Bentley, ACONEX from Oracle, and British Solutions. They primarily focus on PIM, on the Project Information Model. We are supporting both PIM and AIM. And let's now dig deeper into what I mean by that, right? So common data environment is during the design and construction stage. Some of the things BIM 360 Docs does better than we do, right? So for a small design firm, if you just need to store Revit files in the cloud and open up them and just publish the files back to the file storage, you can be okay with BIM 360 Docs. Some things that it does even better than we do. On the other hand, if you want to manage the metadata for the elements of the model, we do that better than BIM 360 Docs. Because our capabilities with asset information management are more advanced. And we do it all in one platform, while in BIM 360, you need to have separate applications for docs, separate for fields, separate for ops, separate for assembles. So because Autodesk was buying them over the period of several years, right? So it's not easy to take an application and merge it with another application, completely creating a single platform. It's impossible. But you can integrate them to some degree, but it's still going to be separate applications. EcoDomus is a single platform, so we have one single database where we store that information. So during the design stage, our goal is really to check the model data for compliance. So what we have a QC engine that helps us to establish the set of requirements for the metadata for the elements and make sure that this information is useful for the handover to construction. During the construction phase, we validate information that builders are entering in the field or back in the office and making sure that it's well prepared for the handover to operation and maintenance. In operation and maintenance, we allow the end users, the owners, to use that information for various digital twin purposes and maintain those models so they could be useful for the renovation and upgrades. And the cycle repeats itself, right? Well, now let's look at some fancy stuff. This is EcoDomus software and one of our clients, Sydney Opera House. So what I'm looking here is I'm looking for some location, some room 534, because somebody said, I want to explore some of the lighting features that I have in that room. So the software, which is browser-based, we use our own viewer. We're not using Forge from Autodesk like many others because Forge is a decent package. It's actually a pretty good viewer. The problem we had with it is that it's not working offline on premises, and many of our clients, they are afraid for their security of data and they don't deploy things in the cloud. They use cloud for some purposes, but when they start connecting legacy applications, they move it behind the firewall on their premises. And so we cannot use Forge for that. And so we use our own viewer. The other thing is also Autodesk API for Forge. It's limited. Autodesk doesn't open up some of the API calls because they're afraid of the competition. And like, for example, there is no native app Forge for the iPad and Android, let's say. You can only use the browser version. And we use native apps from the App Store and Google Play when we deal with the native mobile applications. Anyway, so we decided to build our own viewer. So I found this location. I see it through the walls because it's an underground location. On the right side, I see all of my objects inside of that space, 1,200 of them. I see the attributes extracted from the model for this space. I see the documents associated with that location, that space. I see all of my construction and operational issues or work orders associated with that location. I can see how many people are right now in that location, what's the air quality, what's the temperature within this location. So pretty much any question I want to know about this room, I have them in my database. Now I remove the transparency because I want to see the objects as they are. And here's the lighting feature that I'm interested in. Now I see the information about this component. And not only I can see it, like in many other viewers, I can edit those parameters. I cannot move the geometry of this lighting fixture, but I can edit its parameters. And I can open up the documents associated with this lighting fixture. I can see the original electrical schema from the 1960s. I see that there are no open issues, so I can create an open work order for this lighting fixture, specify that something is wrong with it or whatever. While I was looking at this lighting fixture, I noticed that there's an open tag applied to one of those boxes. So I see, all right, so this is the box. What is happening here? I see it's the key holder box, and there's a broken handle for this box, so I can assign somebody to go and fix it if needed. As you understand, since I'm dealing in BIM, it may be an existing facility, or it may be a facility that hasn't been even built. You can simulate the work as if you actually already built this facility and do all of these trainings and planning while the building hasn't even been built yet, right? Because we operate in a virtual world here. So I can look at its chiller room, I can go back, and I can switch actually to 2D navigation if I want to, because these 2D and 3D, we have them interconnected. So now I'm going into the central performance hall. I've noticed that my chairs layer is turned off because it's the federated model. So I can go back, you see all of these files, they are BIM files here. So I turned on my furniture level, and I can select individual chair and say somebody spilled coffee on that chair. Right. So that's how kind of a basic navigation within the software works. All of these elements are objects. Every object has the database connection, and you can do something within it. Like I mentioned earlier, 2D is also an interface that we actively support, because a lot of tasks look better when they are navigated within 2D, like for example, electrical schemas, but we still make them interactive. So when you click on this rectangle with panel board LA1, it will open for you the profile page for that asset, and you can, like in this example, when I navigate here, this is the building in Switzerland. So I can see my real-time data, but at the same time, I can see my properties for the assets. I can see the documents, BIS data, et cetera, et cetera. And if I want to see that in 3D, it loads my 3D viewer and finds that asset within the 3D viewer. Showed me where it is. Why people do that, right? So there is no thing that as a generic digital twin. All of them are used for specific purpose. So for one client, a digital twin may include only architectural elements, because that's what they build it for. We had a client that wanted to train their first responders, the firefighters, police, and for them, piping and ducting was not needed. So it was much easier just to create the basic architectural and just navigate within there. For other clients, like we're doing a big project for Harvard University, they said, look, we don't have the budget for electrical right now, and we're not that interested, but what we're interested in is water. If there's a water leak, plumbing leak, I want to click on the piece of a pipe, and you need to show me where the closest shut-off valve. So what we did is we split the Revit model into the subsystems in such a way that clicking on the pipe was bringing you to the closest shut-off valve. By the way, by default, Revit doesn't provide that functionality. It was something we did in addition to what Revit can provide you with by default. So somebody says, well, we have these complex plants, and utility shutdown each time takes quite a lot of time. So we, some echo, maybe too near to the microphone. I don't have to, I don't hear anything. So maybe it's the echo caused by Zoom itself. So I don't know. I'm sorry if you guys hear an echo. So for plant, let's say, it's understanding how the objects have the relationship one to another. That's going to be useful for that specific owner, right? So when the owner defines what they need to build and how they want to use it, that's how you build your twin. And it's not just the buildings. We all used to, BIM is for and somebody shows you an office building. Right now, I would say the most actively developing industries for us are infrastructure, industrial, because that's where the money is, right? So wastewater treatment plants, factories. I cannot say oil and gas is active, but it's starting to warm up. So it doesn't really matter what kind of structure, as long as you can touch it, that means you can create a virtual representation for it. There is plenty of materials, fortunately, over the past 10, 12 years have been created. There's even a book written called BIM for Facility Managers about 5 years ago. I was helping Paul Teichels with some materials for this book. There's lots of reports. PwC published report about the benefits of BIM. So if you're looking for more information to prove the value of the BIM and digital twin to your management because they cannot approve it for some reason, let us know. We can help you with the materials. How these models are being created. It's important to understand that not all BIMs are created equal, because the design BIM and construction BIM are two different things. And the owner-focused BIM that is needed for the owner's digital twin is the third thing. You know, people don't really know about that. Some of course know and share with the clients. Clients call me and says, hey, I got just BIM, I finished the construction project, now I want to use it. And I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, but you most probably will have to spend some money to upgrade that model to make it useful, because your modelers probably didn't model systems, didn't place room objects correctly, probably didn't name those objects correctly, et cetera, et cetera. So that's need to be clear that these record models or facility models that are created and maintained, this is some skill that you need to have. You can learn it, of course, there's nothing difficult about it, it's not rocket science, but you need to be using the BIM authoring tools as BIM authoring tools and not as just the 3D drafting applications, like 90% of people use it. All right. So it's not also difficult to maintain those digital twins, but I'll admit that very few of even our clients are maintaining them. So everybody's happy just to build it, and then like, phew, we build it, but all of the renovations then continue in the old way. We have a few clients that are advanced, that are maintaining the versions of all of their renovation projects within the same approach of phasing, and they are able to see what was there before, what was there after for all of their renovation projects. So they can build complex facilities like Howard Hughes Medical, for example, one of our first clients as well. These guys they do a lot of renovation all the time because it's a research lab, and all of their renovations are properly maintained. Pretty unique client, by the way. Very detailed, everything known, everything is virtual, kind of a poster boy. All right, so standards. Let's talk a bit about standards for creating those. First of all, everybody's lacking information in their standards if they even use one. First of all, supply chain are not using information modeling, as like I mentioned earlier. Supply chain usually does just drafting. There is no responsibility, meaning that there is no information manager. Usually there is the BIM guy who is tasked to collect some data, and he sometimes does it, sometimes not. People try to use Excel or something not developed for that functionality because they already have that, or because the management gave it to them. Owners typically don't provide any requirements. They just say, give me a good model, which is nothing really. And everybody tries to do it at the last minute. Schedule is always behind. You know, they all say at the beginning of the project, we have lots of time. Don't worry. It's a year or maybe 2 year long project. We will take care of the information closer to the middle of the project. Then they say, well, probably close to the end of the project. Then the project is over. Well, we have another year before with substantial. Anyway, so everybody's behind. So what is important is when you start, even before you started modeling, you need to know answers to a lot of questions. You know, what kind of data we will be collecting? What is this asset information requirement that we need to build that model? How are we going to be doing it? Who is going to be doing it? When? Where will we manage that information? So all of this needs to be coming based on the client's organizational requirements right? So like I said, let's say they're saying, we are Class A office building. For us, number one need is the comfort of, tenants' comfort. For other client, it's not that at all. For them, it's a risk management because we are a public facility, let's say a train station or an airport. For us, number one is the risk management. For the third one, hey, it's cost. We need to reduce the cost. Those three tasks are completely different. So the asset information requirements may be different. So the model can be different, right? And we, like I mentioned earlier, because typically the models that were being created, they focus on 2D PDF deliverables, no systems connected, geometry problems. So all of these things need to be sorted out before you start modeling, so you don't redo it again. People don't want to pay twice for the same thing. One of the important steps within that is the quality control of the metadata. Here's the sample of probably one of the simplest asset information requirements from the US Department of Veterans Affairs. It's an Excel file when they say, for these types of assets, we need these kind of fields. For these types of assets, for valves, we need water tests and materials. For engines, we need length, width, height, etc. Right? So what we can do is we can take those requirements and populate them within EcoDomus QC engine, where we define all of those fields. We specify what would be the interface when we collect these fields. As you can see here, when I open up this valve, I can see exactly the fields that the client wants, right? And at different stages within the project, you can run a QC engine and it will tell you that these are the fields that are missing. These are the documents that were supposed to be uploaded, but they were not uploaded, right? So this is something like some of you who work with Solibri rule sets, right? So you're familiar with this process. What we decided to do is go beyond just dealing with IFC files, because some information is not stored in IFC. Like for example, documents, you cannot squeeze the document into an IFC. So here I see that for the ball valve 1 inch, I'm missing image and specification document, and I'm missing those 3 fields. The other thing with IFC that is difficult to do, here if I'm missing this field, I'll just edit it right here. If I'm missing this document, I will upload it right here. So I can fix my issues within the same environment where I found this. I don't have to send the email back to the model, say, hey, you need to enter these dates into your file so we could republish the IFC, and then send me that IFC again so I can retest it again in Solibri. So we avoid that step. So it's much faster, and it's visible at the same time by both parties: supplier, the architect, engineer, builder, and the owner who is receiving this information, because the document management is part of the application. So if I'm missing something here, I can upload my document right here within the same environment. So you can create your own rules. You can apply them to the model. Like in this example, let's say I have 3,500, 3,500 various objects, but I'm only interested in VAV boxes that cost more than $200, right? So I can create a rule that says name contains VAV, purchase cost greater than 200, and that becomes my filter, my saved query. So I can immediately find those 15 objects that satisfy that condition. Or I want to see the assets that have been commissioned in January. So commission date between January 1st and January 31st. And this gives me these 5 objects. And I can run the same query within my viewer. So I can see those 15 VAV boxes. I can interrogate each one of them. Right, so this is my VAV box. That's another VAV box. Or I can run that commissioning query that shows me commissioned objects. Right, so you can see what has been installed, what has been delivered to site, etc., etc. For if you need some language for your tenders and RFPs about the features similar to that, let us know. We can provide that as well. So why typically people use the CDE for BIM data management like ours? First of all, it helps you to build a clean BIM that is used using quality control. There are different types of data entry. Let's not forget that not everybody can use Revit or ArchiCAD, right? So you need some people who just providing the information about serial numbers or the installation dates. So they need either a mobile interface or the browser-based interface, so they can enter this data instead of sending emails with this information to the BIM guy who will start typing it inside of the authoring application. And you can also simplify their data entry by optimizing their interface, showing them only the information they need to see. 2D workflows, right? So a lot of people still use traditional PDFs, DWG files, DGN files. So you need to have the ability to work with all of these traditional documents. So we have the document management module within the application. The major difference is that we can link BIM elements to any of the files and not just assigning a document to individual BIM component, like some 3D viewers allow you to do that. In our case, you can assign it to either a type or a system or a space or a zone. So you can assign it to different types of entities within the environment. Plus, you can do traditional EDMS functionalities. EDMS stands for Electronic Document Management System. You can do your redlining, your comments. You can create issues associated with your PDFs. You can do check-in, check-out, or blocking the documents from changes. You can customize metadata for those fields. You can define any fields for those documents. You can define your own workflows. What happens, changes the statuses. Like this is the 19650 says that documents should go through the various approvals, right? So you can build this kind of customized workflows. You can do the auto naming, etc. Right? So whatever you typically do with the documentation, yeah, you can do it here. But it's more than just documents management, right? We even have the PDF comparison where you can compare the different versions of the same file and see within the PDF what is changed within this version, and you can even scroll and it will show you what specific section of the drawing has changed. All right, so but that's not something interesting. That's not what I'm usually interested in. I'm more interested in BIM workflows. There's also a module for tracking the issues when you do the BIM design and coordination, or you do construction installation, or you perform operation and maintenance fixes. You deal with tasks, right? You deal with issues. So we have the ability to create issues in a traditional way, using, let's say, a browser or an iPad. You can just populate the basic information, what this task is about, or what, but you can also attach the BIM objects to those issues. And you can attach them also within the viewer. You can also apply the redlining within the viewer. You can even do that within the point cloud. So we support point clouds within our interface. So you can upload your point clouds and do even markups within that and create an issues. Like in this example, let's say I've noticed that this fan is too close to this pipe. So I create an issue. This fan automatically associated with the issue. I do the markup. And then I send it, the markup is attached to the issue, and then I send them to via BCF. BCF stands for BIM Collaboration Format. It's the open standard for the issues exchange. And that's how the individual issue looks like. So we see the issue description, and on the right side, we see the mini chat that shows the status changes within the issue, the comments, and the markups associated with that issue. Now let's talk about the popular task of integrations, because like I mentioned on one of the first slides, digital twin, when you create it, you need to have multiple, well, not, you don't need to have, it's advisable that you integrate it with the other legacy systems. Your Siemens's, Honeywell, SCADA systems, or your project management tools like Procore or Primavera, your maintenance management systems or ERP systems, right? So you get the data from the geometry tools like Revit or Bentley, and you enhance it by all of these other sources of information. Like here's the example of what was done at the Sydney Opera House in different types of integrations done. Here's another project from Melbourne Water. It's the It's what these guys did themselves using our API. Like many applications, we have our own API. No, let's say Maximo has its API. We sometimes use that. But if you want to use our API, you can do what these guys did at Melbourne Water. So they integrated EcoDomus with Maximo themselves, with the OSI Pi, which is the SCADA interface, and with the inflow document management system. Right, so they did it all themselves using our API. So it shows you that not only we can do it, others can do it as well. Right, so in this case, you see they selected a couple of dates from March 16th to 17th. For this pump, show us the values. This is what the current and frequency and power was changing for these two data points. And on the right side, you see the linked documents. You can see the work orders that have been pulled in from Maximo here. So all of that can be a part of your decision-making process. Like I mentioned, we often do the APIs ourselves. You can upload the files. Let's say you can publish from one of the authoring files into Excel, and you can import that Excel into almost any other applications. Usually this is the one-time approach. It doesn't really provide you much value because all systems usually change. And so the only way to establish the bidirectionality is to use the web services using API. You map the fields, and those fields, if they change, they trigger an event. How we publish the models, let's say here's your authoring environment. In this case, it's Revit. We do similar for Bentley Open, Buildings Open Roads, and for other technology using IFC. So you select the data that you want to extract, and you push the data from the native application into EcoDomus or from IFC into EcoDomus. You publish the geometry, and that geometry becomes the visual part of what I was just showing you earlier. And from here on, you can push this data to other applications. Let's say in this case, it's Primavera Unifier, and we build the project management integrations if needed, et cetera, et cetera. Right, so I'll move on faster to BIM GIS integration. We also used Esri ArcGIS as one of the front ends within our sources. So in this example, we work with the Metro Rail in Auckland, and in that project, it's the largest infrastructure project in New Zealand. So there's several new metro stations and tunnels, and so you can jump from the GIS map for each of these sections of this way into the EcoDomus viewer, where we have a merged environment. As you can see here, it has the BIM embedded within the point cloud that was created using the drone scanning. So they can see how the model fits into the current real life point environment. Underground utilities are there as well. So this is a combined federated model that consists of Autodesk Civil 3D files, 12D, which is another package, plus some of it is in Revit, but most of it is IFC files that we got from 12D. So that's one of the ways to deal with GIS. The other way is using CTGML, which is an open standard that is promoted by OGS, Open Geospatial Consortium, OGC. So CTGML is something like IFC, but for the GIS data. So most of these buildings, as you can see, they are just shapes that got through the CTGML. This building was done through the BIM. And so in this case, I was selecting a lighting fixture, asking to show me which panel board it's managed by, and I can see where that panel board is connected. And now let's move towards the mobile. Like I mentioned earlier, we have native apps for iPad and Android. And so you can use it to scan using the embedded camera. You can scan the QR code or barcode to find an object. You can edit its properties and review the documents that are linked to that asset and create populate electronic forms. We now also support filling out the PDF forms. And primarily it's being used to create an issue in the field, attach a photo, and then review those issues and assign them and complete them. Here also we use the inspections for COVID cleaning. So this was the opera house selecting some room, then selecting how the assessment has been performed, how the cleaning was performed. If there's some problem, they are creating a notification. They click on the floor plan to specify where those found issues are. And the photo is taken for the problem, and they can start tracking it. On the integrations with the sensors, that is, again, a lot of people, when they talk about digital twin, they only refer to sensors, right? They don't even talk about the baseline asset register. We consider that is not very wise approach, because a sensor can show you a steady information and it's not jumping up or down. You think everything is cool, but in reality, your asset is working at full capacity. So it's going to fail much faster. There's a lot of different types of sensors as well. There, now there's the surveillance, videos, automatic blind control, etc. We believe that in order to analyze how sensors behave, you need to know how they are supposed to behave. Right. So the simulation based on the actual engineering data needs to provide you the framework within which you are actually applying those sensors to see whether these values are in line with what you expect them to be. In this case, you can have what I was earlier defining as supposed to and as actually happening. These are some examples of this is the data center, the largest in Eastern Europe, by the way. And here they are tracking the performance from you see the blue panels on top of the BIM objects. They are receiving real-time data, and based on this real-time data, they animate what's happening with individual pumps here. So you can add those objects or these panels with real-time data within the BIM that we generate from the source information. In this example, we use different types of sensors. Here, the presence sensors, we used one from Point Grab, which tells you how many people are in the specific area. And we colored the floor plans in different colors depending on the number of people. And at the same time, video cameras was showing exactly the same section. So you could see what's happening within that section. Video was received via OnViv standard. It's the open standard for video integrations. There are other types of sensors that we are playing with. I would say it's mostly right now proof of concepts. I don't see many real, big owners that are actively deploying them for all of their facilities. It's usually kind of a pilot here, proof of concept there. On the laser scanning, I'm sure most of you know about LiDAR, right? And laser scanning, we use them all the time when new models are built to validate the accuracy of the models. But sometimes we also use them to create a mixed environment where some elements are modeled, like core and shell elements, where you can see them as parametric objects, but some objects are just created as the point cloud reference, so you can understand what is around those objects, but they are obviously just dots. But within those dots, you see actual objects that are the ones that you are tracking. All right, so like in this example. We also have the ability to add objects, we call them shapes. If you have the model developed, but there are some things that are usually not developed, like sensors or some boxes with spare parts of some furniture. So you can add these shapes within the EcoDomus interface. You can change their sizes. And right now, obviously, they are just dumb geometries, but you have the ability to link them to intelligent database properties that we store in our SQL database. So in this case, I can link that, and now it becomes an intelligent object. So you can place those objects inside of the point clouds, for example, as well, and make that what I was showing you on the previous slide. So that's pretty much what I wanted to show you in terms of the different types of cases. You've probably seen today maybe 10, 12 different types of how the BIMs can be used, how they can be applied in real life scenarios. We still have about 10, 12 minutes for questions and answers. So please use the chat to send me questions and I will be answering them one by one. Right now, I only have one comment in the chat, so please I'm sure you have questions, don't be shy. I hope you understood everything I was saying. I was speaking quickly. All right, anyone? We have quite a lot of people on the call. Do we have any customers in no, we don't. We just started. We have our partners who organize this meeting. They obviously have clients. We are now, we have a few ongoing conversations with potential clients, which we started having a couple of months ago, right? So it's pretty new. Yes, we will share the slides. With the organizers, we'll send you guys. They have the information. So, okay. I would like to know more about asset management. Do you support products option like Deluxe FM has? Well, I'm not sure what the products option is within Deluxe FM. I know of Deluxe FM, but I don't know what Deluxe FM really includes. So
I can clarify. Hello.
Yes. Hi.
Hello. Just a question. This product option is like when you have multiple the same type assets, you enter the information once, for example, this maintenance instruction and etc. spare parts list, and you just apply it to multiple elements. It's not, for example, even project scale, but even if you have multiple 20 shops, like for example.
I got it. Yeah, we used to have it. We threw it away because in real life it didn't work well, because every client was customizing their products. And what we are now doing is we are connecting to the systems like CoBuilder, which is managing this product database. It's a separate task, full-time job to actually maintain those products databases. And right, we do have now a project in Saudi Arabia where the CoBuilder is going to be providing us with the product data templates and populate the manufacturer's information dynamically, because manufacturers changes their products all the time. The challenge we had with products table, like you just described, like I said, is that it's not static. It's always changing, and it was just painful. It's a separate business line. So we decided that we would subscribe to the professional products table, like CoBuilder has, and we will just give that task, that headache, to somebody else. So it's a good idea, but it's a separate business to deal with manufacturers. So our focus would be only on the CDE part of it, and let CoBuilder to handle the manufacturer's data. All right, good question. Let's see if we have more. Oops, wait a minute. Chat. Anybody else?
Maybe possible by word. Just to ask a question.
By word? What do you mean?
Yeah. Maybe I can ask one more question.
Sure,
it's
go
regarding
ahead.
This updating the models. Yes, you mentioned the part that some clients does. So it's really like how to say, only minor cases that uses functionality. Or do you see the trend that is going more and more to use, or it just like stays the same number, like 1-2 companies that would like to update the models and then the asset data?
Well, they all want to update. The challenge is it's not easy, all right? And so this is the slide I was using. First of all, it requires you to have an established either internal team that would continuously update it, or an established partner that you trust that will be continuously updating it. Quite a lot of time, the owner hire the BIM modeler using a tender, and they do it one time, they use one person, and then another time they use another person. But understanding how to maintain your models, it's something that you need to be relied upon for a long period of time. And some organizations, just by the nature of the procurement, they cannot kind of just have one supplier all the time, right? And at the same time, they cannot hire a full-time person inside because they have not yet maybe justified the presence of that person, So there are some political issues that prevent them. It's not, like I said, it's not technically difficult. It's just a matter of how the procurement is structured within the FM industry. Because they say, well, if it's BIM, it's not a part of FM, it's part of the capital projects division. But capital projects doesn't want to do anything with the maintaining the models, because they say, I don't care. I only care about projects, right? So I don't want to maintain those. So there are some issues. They are not technical. They are just, I would say, political. All right. Oh, I see another one. QR codes, do you use them to connect elements? QR codes is actually interesting topic. First of all, it's obviously a unique identifier for an individual element, right? And we use them to scan, when we scan them on a mobile device to find an object within the asset database and show it in the viewer, or just show the profile page, right? So it's kind of a unique identifier. But we also started some work with GS1, which is the global barcoding authority that plans to assign every object in the world should have its own GUID. And in this case, it will be interesting effort. So this Saudi project that I was mentioning, the NEOM city, that is, they're building a new city. They are planning to use that global GTIN, it's Global Trade Identification Number. That I assume that will be a big boost to using the QR codes, barcodes within the industry. And within our interface, we allow to create templates that you can define your own barcodes, whether it's a barcode or QR code, what kind of text you want to see on top of them or below them. So we do have some configuration options related to that. The question is, would it be possible to get access to the software for educational purposes? We work with educational institutions. Those who were getting from us the license for the training didn't go anywhere, because we would prefer to have a more kind of a better established cooperation agreement. And we do have a few universities that are successful with that, and a few that didn't go anywhere. So we can discuss it. Yeah, please contact me, and I will respond about the educational versions. Okay, more questions? Feel free. We have 5 more minutes.
Any word about pricing?
Sure. Our pricing is somewhere between $30 and $100 per user per month, depending on the number of users. And that's for the licensing. Obviously, the integrations are negotiated depending on what the kind of a scope of the integration is. But since we build a lot of them, the costs are quite acceptable. So the actual implementations are not that expensive. But the prices for licenses, they are pretty stable. They've been stable from the beginning. And they are annual subscription licenses, so they are not perpetual. What are your main differences with Archibus? Well, if you look at the schema here, we do integrate with Archibus. Archibus is a CAFM application. So they're created to manage the spatial information, move management. They are process-oriented. We are product-oriented. So for us, the goal is to create this central data information about the actual object. All of the processes are kind of they are on top of that information. We store information even if it's not needed by anybody, because at some point somebody will say, oh, that's quite useful, I want to use that. Archibus came from the automating the processes. So they said, well, let's manage the spaces, right? And that's how they started developing. There's definitely quite a lot of overlaps between all of the products, right? Archibus can also do work orders, and IBM Maxima can do work orders, but people usually, if they want to do work orders, they usually choose Maxima because it does it better. But Archibus does space management better, and somebody else does something else better, right? So each software application, it doesn't matter really how rich the owner is, even IBM and Apple and etc. They cannot build a universal software that does everything well. You know, something we do well and other things we do just to keep the client happy, right? So that's why most of the major facility owners, they choose the best of breed approach. Best of breed means that for each functionality, you choose the product that is best for that specific functionality. So we position ourselves as that product database, a common data environment for the facility, right? So I can, like I mentioned in the first video here, I want to be able to answer any question about that location, right? Even if it's not used for anything, I still want to track this information. Okay, so that's how we position EcoDomus. So to build that, it's not easy to build that database because you have to consider different sources of data, different ways of how to maintain that information, right? So, but in the end, like what we see is well adopted is that people say, yes, I want to use Archibus because it's a great product for space management, but I also want to use Siemens Apogee, and in my Archibus and in my Siemens, the same rooms have different numbers. That's a problem because in the model, that room number is also different, and in Maxima, it's also it's very often that we see 3-4 different room numbers for the same object because all of these applications are separate. They are used by different departments. Your real estate department is using one app, your maintenance department is using another app. They rarely talk to each other because they're paid from different budgets, right? So we often just act as this connecting central source of truth, single source of truth. It doesn't mean that we are not copying information from one source into another. We do. We sometimes even duplicate this information, but we act as the thing that ties it all together. All right, good. Next, all right, licensing based per user, correct? Yes, per named user, but we sometimes have the unlimited pricing options for the enterprise clients. Because some clients say, look, I have 10 guys that continuously within the property, but we also have external contractors who will want to be a part of our environment, and they access it maybe once a year or maybe once a month. So we negotiate for those purposes unlimited pricing for that specific organization. Viewer said that no, we right now we have one price for the whole package because most of our clients, they want to buy the whole thing. That's one of the things different from Autodesk because they bought all of these companies separately. They bought Vela and called it Field. They bought Assembled and they call it Cost. They have to sell them by modules. Since we built it as one package, we sold the platform as one package, but we can negotiate modules if you're saying, well, right now I want to start with documents and get the assets in 3 months and get the viewer in 9 months, we can negotiate. All right. Well, we're done. I think we're at the top of the hour. Thank you very much. It was an engaging conversation. You have my contact info. You have the information from our partners who organized the call. So I'm sure that they will be in touch with you with more information. They will send you the presentation, and they are our official partners in the Baltics, and we'll be happy to work with you through them. Thank you very much. All right, bye-bye.